Hi guys, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. Just a recap of the weekend just gone. So our first losing UFC of the year. Across the weekend on live betting, there was boxing on Friday night, UFC Saturday night. We actually came out about a unit in profit on live betting across the weekend. We had our first loss on UFC live betting of the year. We ended up around a unit down thanks to the Ben Rothwell decision going against us. That basically made the difference between us profiting on live betting for the UFC or having a losing night. So about a unit loss there. We also the same night had a 22-1, so plus 2200 shot at a draw in the boxing. Ugas taking on Sean Porter. Ended up being a split decision win for Sean Porter. The final judge had Porter by 2 points. Now, if he'd given the 12th round to Ugas, as he should have, because Ugas clearly won round 12, it would have been a draw on his card and it would have hit, so it would have been a huge win. So, really unlucky there. Razor thin loss on hitting the draw. But we won nearly 2.5 units on Friday night on the boxing. So, overall, about a unit's profit on live betting. We also had our first pre-bet loss overall across the UFC event for 2019. We had half a unit on Team Boach. Hindsight, not a great bet. He looks like he's going to retire. Didn't seem overly interested in there. So yeah, kind of regret that bet really, taking a stab at that. I missed the plus 175 or 7-4 odds, which I probably wouldn't even regret. I ended up taking plus 135, which is kind of like 11-8 in UK odds, which probably should have just passed where I missed the plus 175. And we had Tim Means to close our double from the previous week with Macy Kaysen. Don't regret the Tim Means bet. The fight was going kind of how I thought it would. He just got caught. That is the danger with Price. He does produce these come from behind victories out of nowhere when he's clearly the inferior fighter. So it was always the danger, but Means had never been KO'd before. So, you know, I was quite happy and content with the bet, and almost on the verge of counting my money. Means was that much in control, totally dominating the fight, and then bang, he gets caught. But that is the nature of the beast. That's why we probably all love MMA. It's so unpredictable. You just never know what's going to happen. So we just got to take the loss on the chin. As I said before, we can't win every week. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So although we can't win every week, we will win long term. So overall, yeah, it was around across the whole weekend, including live betting and pre-betting, about a 3.5 unit loss. But we're going to hopefully rebound for UFC London. If you want to follow us on Twitter, guys, at Pro MMA Betting, please hit the subscribe button on this channel for the YouTube videos. And if you want to check out our packages, it's prommmabetting.com. So we offer live betting packages, we offer pre-betting packages, and we offer the two combined. Low prices, you can win your money back very quickly. If you have been with us since the start of the year and you use £100 or $100 per unit, you're still up over £4,000 if you're using sterling. You're a UK customer, you're up over £4,000. I think it's about 4,300. I was hoping to break 5,000 at the weekend, because after Friday night on the live betting on boxing, it put members up to about 4,800. So I was hoping UFC was going to tip us over 5,000, but alas, we had a losing night, unfortunately. So we're back down to around 4,300 for the year for a £100 per unit better. And it's still real early in the year. We've only had 7 UFC events. We've still got about, I think it's 35 events to go, plus we've got Bellator, plus we've got lots of boxing events, Cage Warriors if they start producing the odds again. So lots and lots of opportunities, and no reason why we aren't going to continue where we left off from the previous week and hopefully go on another winning run with the UFC event. So let's break down the UFC London card. So first fight on the card, we've got Negumereanu, who we've seen in the UFC twice now, 2-0, British fighter but trains out of Team Alpha Male, taking on the debuting Grundy. Mike trains out of Darren Till's camp. He is a bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games in, I think it's freestyle wrestling. So he's coming in here with an 11-1 record, making his UFC debut. So Nathaniel, a gritty fighter, okay in all facets of the game, doesn't really excel anywhere. He beat Paddy Pimblett in Cage Warriors 5-round decision. His 2 UFC fights, he's had kind of a gentle introduction, I guess you could say, to the UFC. He's beaten Khalid Taha, German fighter, and he took on Anderson dos Santos, who I think took that fight on pretty short notice back in November. 2 decision wins. Nad, as I said, he's a gritty fighter. He's okay in all areas of the game. He's got a ceiling. He's not gonna go too far in this featherweight division, but he's definitely a decent lower tier UFC featherweight. Trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's 31 years of age now, 12-2 overall record. Yeah, he's tough, he's gritty, okay in all areas. I mean, nothing stands out exceptionally with him. Mike Grundy, it's his UFC debut. Strong wrestling background for a British fighter, bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games. Hasn't faced the best competition, so I'm not sure how his wrestling is going to translate as he starts stepping up in competition, especially now he's in the UFC. We saw him against Fernando Bruno. It was around 18 months ago now since he last fought. Fernando Bruno's fought in the UFC, fought Gray Maynard. Won a pretty comfortable decision by mainly getting his wrestling going. I saw his fight before against Michael Tobin in ACB. Pretty much just easily wrestled him. So yeah, I don't know how good his game's going to be now fighting at the higher level. He's got by on his wrestling. How good is a bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games compared to some of these really good collegiate wrestlers in the US, or even just an MMA fighter with a solid understanding of wrestling principles? I'm not sure. We're going to find out. He is 32 as well, so he's not particularly young. He's going to have to, if he's going to go anywhere, he's going to have to move quick. So I'm going to pick Nad here. Grundy, even though he comes out of Teal's camp, which is a striking heavy camp, from what I've seen, his striking doesn't seem great, but he's kind of been able to just dictate his fights by just going to his wrestling so far. He's not really been forced to stand, so I can't say his stand-up's not particularly good, because we just don't know at this stage, but from what I've seen, it doesn't look great. So I am going to go with Nad to win a decision here. I think it's going to be a competitive, close fought, gritty fight, as Nad's fights tend to be. It's in England, this one as well. Odds are Nad is his odds are starting to drop actually. He's -235 favourite now. It's a hard fight for me to bet just because I don't have a good ceiling on where Grundy is at really. I am looking to fade Nad. I've said that after his first 2 fights. I bet him against Taha. I think I bet him against Santos, or maybe I didn't bet him against Santos. I remember strongly considering it. But yeah, after both them performances, I'm definitely looking to bet against him at some point. But just haven't got 100% understanding of how good Grundy is and how his wrestling is going to translate. I've got a feeling he might be able to get a few takedowns, but I think Nad might be able to work back to his feet. I think Nad's probably going to win the stand-up. I just see it being a close, gritty fight, but I see Nad taking the decision. But yeah, I can't bet him at his current price just because I need a better understanding of Grundy's ceiling. But I'm going to pick Nad to win a decision. Women's 125-pound division next. Molly McCann taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. Real low-level fight. This complete pass from me. Molly built a reputation on the Cage Warriors circuit in England. She's from Liverpool. Trains out of the same camp as Chris Fishgold. I bet her on Cage Warriors, where she was fighting some real low caliber girls. Now I'm not saying Priscilla is high caliber, she's not. She's pretty terrible herself, but I'm definitely not betting this one. So Molly's all about the stand up. She hasn't really got any grappling. Takedown defence is poor. She's got okay stand up, but she's really unathletic, pretty slow. Priscilla has no fundamentals to her stand up, but she'll come in, she'll throw down. Whether she can implement wrestling and try and exploit that part of Molly's game, I don't really know. She trains with Jessica Andrade over in Brazil. We haven't really seen her properly for 18 months because the fight where she made her UFC debut, she got absolutely beaten down by Shevchenko, so we didn't get to see anything of her game there. She got taken down and just ruined on the ground, so I don't know if her stand-up's come along at all, because it is very, very raw from watching on tape. But I just don't trust Molly McCann to bet her here as a nearly -200 favourite. I am going to pick Molly. Her stand-up is okay. Fundamentally she's fine, but she's quite short. She'll have to get in and out of Priscilla's range, so she's going to be coming into the firing line. She is hittable. She leads with her left hook a lot, which I hate. I hate people that lead with a left hook. Just leaves you open to a counter. It's a really hard punch to land when you're throwing it naked. I'm going to pick her to win a decision here, but I see it being a low level, gritty, horrible fight, and yeah, I just can't risk money on Molly McCann. It was okay in Cage Warriors where the girls are really terrible that she was fighting, and as I say, Priscilla, fundamentally she looks awful, but she's gritty, she'll throw down. I just wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a real gritty, horrible fight. So I'm going with Molly decision, but honestly, I would, if you're a bettor, I would avoid this one like the plague. I would not be surprised if Molly gets dragged into a scrappy fight here and you sweat your balls off. So I'm going to go Molly decision, but that is not a confident pick as well, I've got to admit, because I remember how bad Priscilla was going into tape. I was hoping Molly was going to be a big bet, but after reminding myself of Molly, I just can't do it, and Molly has got no ground game and bad takedown defense. Next we've got the men's featherweight division again. We've got Danny Henry from Scotland taking on Dan Ige from America. Danny's got around 6 inches height here. He's got a couple inch reach advantage. From the 16 minutes we've seen of Danny Henry in the UFC, he's got very high strikes landed, significant strikes landed per minute. He's up over 6. Dan Ige's nearly at 4. They both absorb a fair bit. They're both, well, Danny Henry's around 4.5. Dan Ige's nearly up at 3.5. So yeah, you're looking probably at a high volume affair. Both really hittable. I still haven't got a full handle on Danny Henry. He had the fight with Daniel Timor in his UFC debut. Got lit up on the feet in the first round, but Timor started to slow down. Danny showed how tough he is, how good his cardio is. He hung in there and took over for the second half of the fight basically. Then he had the really quick win over Hakeem Dawaldu. Just came out, caught him with I think it was a massive right hand, and hurt Dawaldu badly and managed to lock up the choke. So just based on the footage we've seen, it makes this fight hard to call, because Dan Ige is probably going to try and grapple here. But from what we've seen, I just don't know how good Danny Henry's takedown defense is, how good he is from the bottom. So it really does make it a hard fight to call. From watching the Dan Ige fights, I went back and watched his fight on the Contender Series, looked at his 3 UFC fights. So he's actually not bad offensively standing up. Throws some decent shots. Has a nice straight right hand. He's got decent takedowns as well. The one thing that I didn't like about him is sometimes his top control doesn't look particularly good, and I mean, he came out and just absolutely mauled Santiago from top position. But if you look at his other fights, he nearly done the same to Jordan Griffin. He had Jordan Griffin in all sorts of problems in the first round from top position, but he goes from kind of smashing people on the ground, and then he'll get people down multiple times and they just manage to get back to their feet. So it kind of makes him when he hits a takedown, you just don't know whether he's going to maintain the position or not. And he's got really, really bad takedown defense as well. Did not like his takedown defense at all. He gave up a round on a Contender Series against Louis Gomez fight. He was dominating because he got put on his back, didn't show any get-ups, and then I think it was Jordan Griffin as well took the second round off him because he put him on his back and again couldn't get back up. So on the feet, it's still hard to get a handle on Danny Henry, but because he was getting lit up by Tamor, but Tamor gassed and he started to take over kind of across all facets of the fight. Dan Ige's going to come out. I think he's going to look for takedowns. Can he get Danny down? We just haven't seen his takedown defense, but he has got good takedowns. I'm going to have to go with Dan Ige here to win a decision, but I wouldn't be shocked if Danny Henry pulled this off. We've seen Danny, it looked like he was slowing down against Jordan Griffin as well in a high-paced fight, and Danny Henry seems to have really good cardio, but I'm going to go with Dan Ige because I'm going to assume he can get Danny down, even though we don't really know what Danny's takedown defense is like, but Dan does have good takedowns. Trains out of Scotland, so I'm going to assume that Dan's black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to allow him to maintain enough top control to win a decision. On the feet, I see it being fairly competitive, both probably having spurts of success, but again, it's not a confident pick just because I feel from the tape that's available we can get a good feel for Dan Ige, but Danny Henry, we just don't have a full idea of what his game's like. So Dan's a minus 150 favourite. I guess you've got to give him the edge, but for me it's, I mean, I can understand why people would bet Dan Ige here, but for me it's a pass fight just because of the unknowns with Danny Henry still. Hopefully this fight will answer them, so I'll have a full handle on capping him moving forward. I'm going to pick Dan Ige by decision, but I can see this being a like all the fights so far, I can see this being a close competitive fight as well, so I would not be shocked if Danny Henry pulled this one off and went to 3-0 in the UFC, and if he does, then he's a guy that's really flying under the radar, and hopefully we see him a bit more active if he does pull this off. But I'm gonna pick Dan to win a decision here. Next, men's middleweight division, really good fight this. We got Tom Breese taking on Ian Heinisch. So Tom Breese 6'3", Ian's 6 foot, 3-inch height advantage for Tom. Ian's reach isn't listed on Fight Metric, but I asked someone yesterday and they said that either the reach, someone said to me the reach was the same, and someone else said Breese had a 1-inch reach advantage. Breese fights southpaw, averages nearly 4 significant strikes per minute. Ian's 3.5. Ian's only had the 1 UFC fight. Tom absorbs 2.5 significant strikes per minute. Ian just over 1.5, but again he's only had the 1 UFC fight. So really good fight this. Tom Breese has been in the UFC for a number of years now, campaigned at welterweight to begin with. No idea how he made the welterweight division. He's a big middleweight, let alone cutting down to welterweight, 6'3". Used to train at TriStar. He's been back at his home gym now with Leon Edwards for a few years, I think. So had 2 really dominating fights, his first 2 UFC fights, against Luis Jorge Dutra Jr., Brazilian fighter, knocked him out end of the first round. Then he beat the grinder Kafil Pendrid, first round knockout. They were both in 2015. And he fought again quickly after the Pendrid fight, February 2016, against Keita Nakamura, won a decision there. A much more competitive fight than his first 2 fights. Keita managed to hit a number of takedowns in that fight, but the size of Breese just seemed a little too much. He got mounted by Nakamura, but he kept going for like heel hook sweeps and managing to get top position basically. But it was a competitive fight because I remember the odds on that were really wide. Tom Breese was something like a 10-1 favourite and did not look like that at all. Then he fought again, short turnaround, Sean Strickland in June 2016. Lost a split decision, close, competitive, stand-up affair for 3 rounds. And then he was out for basically 2 years. Returned at middleweight against Daniel Kelly. I mean, Daniel Kelly's got the judo background, but in hindsight, a really good fight for Breese because Daniel's quite limited standing, really slow. Tom is a sharp puncher on the feet. He's got good boxing, and he stopped Daniel Kelly in the first round. But he's been out for I mean, it's getting on for a year again, so he's been really inactive. I'm not sure why he's been out for nearly a year this time. I know he had the 2 years out. He did have some injury problems. I know he had knee surgery. I'm not sure if it was an ACL. And I remember he was at one point meant to fight. I can't remember the guy's name. I just remember his nickname, the Holy War Angel. He was in a UFC in London, and Tom pulled out the day of the fight due to anxiety. So yeah, he's just been really inactive. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's done a lot of jiu-jitsu or grappling competitions. You can see on Fight Pass there's a fight on there with Nicolae where he gets loses by inverted heel hook about 7 minutes into the first round. But yeah, he's well-rounded, Tom. He's, as I said, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a lot of grappling competitions at a higher level, competed against really good guys, and he's looked good in the UFC. He's only 27, so kind of made his debut when he was around 23, so you know, it's just hard to know where he's at. How much improvement has he made since like the Nakamura and Strickland fights 3 years ago? The Daniel Kelly fight was over in a couple of minutes, didn't really get to see too much. Ian Heinisch made his UFC debut on 6 days notice back in November over in Argentina against a Brazilian in César Ferreira. Won that fight. Very impressive performance for someone making their UFC debut against such a high caliber fighter in Mutanti on short notice. He got taken down a number of times by Mutanti, but no surprise there. He's got really good takedowns, but he'd get up really quick. He threatened from the bottom with submissions. He got in Ferreira's face, set a high pace. Ferreira slowed down, hit his own takedowns, dropped Mutanti, had him hurt in the third round as well. It was a really impressive performance. Ian's got some form of wrestling background, looks very physically strong. Quite renowned prison story with him. I think he was in Rikers Island off of New York for a while, quite a notorious prison I believe over there. He was in prison for around 3 years I believe, so yeah, he's got a real interesting story if you have a look into it. But he's turned his life around. He was in LFA. His last 2 LFA fights, big knockout wins. He's got a very hard right hand, and we saw him drop Ferreira with that. Justin Sumter he destroyed with ground and pound elbows. So this is a dangerous guy. Trains at Factory X as well, so he's from a good camp. The unknowns here are Tom Breese's improvements over the last number of years, and how he looks at middleweight really, because the Daniel Kelly fight was too short a window to get a full understanding of that. But I'm picking Ian Heinisch here. He is the underdog. Oh, the odds are dropping rapidly. He's plus 115 underdog now. He was all the way up at like plus 145 at one point. So that line's tight in. Probably going to go pick 'em. I wouldn't even be shocked if Ian ended up being the favourite. But yeah, I think Ian's going to be in Tom's face. Tom, I haven't seen him pressured. He's kind of always been allowed to play the distance game where he's got that nice stand up from southpaw, that nice straight left hand. But I think Ian's going to get in his face. He's going to pressure him. We haven't seen how Tom deals with that. Ian has just fought a southpaw in Ferreira, so he's fighting his second southpaw in a row here. I listened to an interview as well. He named a number of decent southpaws that he's been training with that are either MMA fighters or glory kickboxers. So he's kind of fairly used to taking on a southpaw at this stage. Based on Nakamura easily taking Tom Breese down on 4 occasions, I've got to think as I say, it's a number of years ago, so his takedown defence could be completely different now. So this is the unknown with Breese. We just don't really know where he's at. But I've got to think Ian can hit takedowns. He's a better wrestler than Nakamura. He's bigger. Tom is up at middleweight now, so maybe he's more physically stronger. Maybe he was a bit weight drained. Who knows? But I think at dog odds, there's definitely value on Ian. I do rate Ian. That Mutanti performance impressed me, especially on 6 days' notice. But I can see him being okay on the feet. He's got big power. How's Tom going to react to the power? We haven't seen that. How's he going to react to the pressure? How's he going to react to someone trying to wrestle him? What's he like off of his back? Heel hook sweeps he was hitting against Nakamura. Is he going to be able to hit them on Ian? Much bigger guy, much physically stronger. Yeah, it's a really interesting fight, this one. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm gonna pick Ian Heinisch to win a decision here over in London. Next, the men's light heavyweight division. I know you've all been waiting for the return of Saparbek Safarov. Well, here he is, taking on Romanian fighter Negumereanu. Safarov we've seen twice in the UFC now. We saw him against Valente in a really entertaining fight. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Entertaining 1.5 rounds of fighting. Little bit comical in a way as well. Safarov actually had more success in that fight than I remembered. He landed some big shots on Valente in the first round. Gassed out really badly though, and he really hurt his knee from I don't know whether it was his knee just gave out from a body kick or he caught Valente's elbow and his knee gave out, but yeah, his knee was really ruined in that fight. Definitely looks like he might have issues with his knees, but he was landing some big shots on Valente. Then he took on Tyson Pedro. Actually got Pedro down a couple of times in that fight. He's Russian. He's got that sambo background or sambo background, master of sport like they all have, etc. So, but yeah, he hasn't really looked impressive. He's definitely got gas tank issues. I'm not sure what his knees are like. He's taken on this debuting Romanian fighter who I done tape on him. He's just beaten absolute cans. He hasn't faced anyone good, so it's really difficult to get a proper read on him. But I'm going to go against conventional wisdom here and do something I never thought I would. I'm going to actually pick Safarov to win a fight in the UFC. Purely, this is me looking at the odds. I don't think Safarov should be a plus 185 underdog here. I mean, historically Romanian fighters in MMA have, I'm trying to think. I mean, from the Eastern Bloc we have seen some decent fighters like Orlovsky, but from Romania per se, and obviously we've got Kutalaba as well, but I don't remember any decent Romanian fighters coming out. So what's the chances that this guy's going to be Romania's first real solid fighter? I mean, I watched tape on him, kind of done what he was supposed to do, I guess. You can't really ask for more than that, but there was one fight with a guy who was like 12-40. It went 2 rounds and the guy just quit at the end of the second round. I mean, Safarov's tough, he's going to throw heavy. Got Tyson Pedro down a couple of times. He beat Rodney Wallace before his UFC debut. Rodney's a vet, a decent fighter. I just don't know how. I don't know whether Safarov is holding his body together with tape though. I do have serious question marks over what kind of physical condition he's in. But at plus 185, I'm going to pick him here. I'm not sure if I want to part my money and place it on Safarov, because I could potentially look silly, but there's no way on this planet I am betting this Romanian fighter at minus 225 in his UFC debut when he's only fought absolute garbage cans. So I'm going to pick Safarov to win. No idea how. As I said, he landed some big shots on Valente, so he could knock this guy out. He's got decent takedown. Well, I don't know if he's got decent takedowns, but he has got some takedowns in his repertoire. He did take down Pedro, as I said, so maybe could get a submission. I can just see this fight maybe dragging out, turning into a sloppy kind of gas fest. But I'm going to pick Safarov to actually win a UFC fight, and hopefully, if he looks impressive, we might get a playable line next time he faces someone in the UFC. So Safarov is the pick. We go back to the men's featherweight division now. This really good fight on the kind of opening for the London card. This and the Tom Breese fight, my favourite 2 fights of the openers. Arnold Allen taking on Jordan Rinaldi. Arnold Allen 13-1 MMA record. Jordan Rinaldi 14-6. Rinaldi has a 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. Both from their UFC fights, quite low significant strikes landed per minute. Allen's at 2, Rinaldi's under 1.5. Both in terms of absorbing shots, pretty low as well. Allen's under 2, Jordan's just over 2. takedown accuracy, both pretty high for both. Arnold Allen 57%, Jordan Rinaldi 45%. Takedown defense 66% for Arnold Allen, Jordan Rinaldi at 20%, but kind of ignore that figure. It's only I can't remember who took him down, but his takedown defense hasn't really been tested in the UFC, so that's a misleading. It was the Gillespie fight, wasn't it? He would have got easily taken down by Gregor Gillespie, so kind of ignore that figure. I think Gillespie's the only person that's taken him down. Abel Trujillo actually might have hit a takedown or two, but yeah, you've kind of got to take that takedown defense with a pinch of salt when it's mainly skewed by Gregor Gillespie. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. Rinaldi is coming off his first fight at 145, where he absolutely dominated Jason Knight for 3 rounds. Now, I know Jason Knight hasn't got any takedown defense, and it was fully on display against Rinaldi, but Rinaldi took him down, kept him down, absolutely dominated him on the mat. Looked really, really impressive in that fight. It was a complete blowout. Before that, he lost to Gregor Gillespie. As I've already touched on, Gregor is a very special fighter, so no shame in that. Before that, he beat Herrera with a shoulder choke quickly in the first round, and before that he made his debut against Trujillo. I'm pretty sure it was on short notice. Lost a decision there. Competitive fight. It was 1-1 going into round 3. Momentum was with Rinaldi, but he really badly gassed out in that third round. Ironically against Trujillo, who outlasted him to the decision win. So Rinaldi seems to have a decent takedown offense. Very good grappler. Definitely got strong grappling. So decent fighter. Arnold Allen, young guy who's kind of like Tom Breese. You know, fair bit of hype. Young guy, but he's been pretty inactive. Made his debut in the UFC back in 2015, like Tom Breese, and like Tom Breese, he's only had 4 fights in that time frame, so over 4 years. Is Tom Breese 4 fights? I think he might be. Short notice debut against Alan Omar. Fight he was losing, pulled out, submission in round 3. Then he beat Meza, unanimous decision. Actually knocked him out on the bell in the 3rd round, so very close to getting a stoppage win there. Meza not the best fighter the UFC's had. Then he fought McCann Amiakani, who is a solid fighter. The McCann fight was very back and forth, a lot of wrestling exchanges, high-paced fight. I found it an entertaining fight. I think Allen got a little bit lucky in that fight. In the 3rd round, he was underneath McCann, and I think it was Neil Allen, British referee, implemented a very, very quick stand-up, and it allowed Allen to start back on his feet, and he actually finished the round pretty strong, and it probably swayed round 3 for him, whereas I'm not sure if he was going to get up from the bottom before that stand up, and I think he would have lost that decision if not for that stand up. So he won a split decision in the end, but it was a very competitive fight. McCann's a solid wrestler. A lot of back and forth in that fight. Entertaining fight, but yeah, I felt he got a little bit lucky with that stand up to win that decision. And then his last fight was in May against Mads Burnell, and he was 2 rounds down in that fight, pulled out a submission, a guillotine choke in round 3. He was just getting out wrestled in the fight basically. Mads was taking him down, keeping him down, and looked like he was on his way to a comfortable decision win. Arnold Allen looked pretty tired as well from all the grappling exchanges, but his cardio held up against McCann, and that was a high intensity fight. So this is a hard fight to call, because Rinaldi does have that wrestling background where he can do what McCann and Mads done. There's no doubt about it. But Allen does train at TriStar. He should be improving. We haven't seen him for almost a year. He fights once a year since he's been in the UFC. He's fought once a year, so it's going to be interesting to see if there is some more improvements. I think Allen's got the better stand up. Rinaldi is going to come out. He's going to try and wrestle him. I think he's going to try and maintain top position. I'm sure Rinaldi took the Trujillo fight on short notice, but just in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, if this is a high-paced fight, is he gonna slow down? Because the Jason Knight fight was all one-way traffic. Rinaldi was completely in control in that fight. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a high-paced fight. Allen, he can get stuck on his back, but he does get back to his feet as well. So unless Rinaldi can get his back each time he takes him to the ground, I think Allen can work his way back to his feet. I see it being a high-paced fight. I certainly understand why I've seen people betting Rinaldi. He's plus 150. I can 100% see why you'd back him here, because he's got a path to victory that McCann could have got that decision in, and arguably would have if not for that stand up, and Masvidal was on his way to winning that fight through wrestling. So I 100% see the path to victory here for Rinaldi, but I've just got a feeling that it's going to be a high paced fight and Rinaldi might slow down. It's definitely going to be close. I can definitely see it being a split decision type fight, or I can definitely see it coming down to round 3. I've just got a feeling that Allen might just edge it out, just based on just having the cardio advantage. But it's a hard fight to call, and I definitely wouldn't bet Arnold Allen at minus 170. I can fully understand, as I said, why people are looking at Rinaldi at plus 150. Path to victory is there, but I've just got a feeling Allen's gonna nick this one. I'm gonna go Allen by decision. Definitely not a confident pick. Very competitive fight. It's going to be entertaining. But yeah, I'm going to pick Allen to win the decision here. Just realised as well, I'm looking at Wikipedia for the fight order, and they don't have the Diakiese Duffy fight listed on the preliminary card. So I'm just going to go over that one now, because I was ready to go into the main card. So Diakiese Duffy lightweight fight. Joseph Duffy, a very good boxer, fought professionally as a boxer. I think he was 7-0. Came away from MMA, but then he went back to MMA. Famous for having the victory over Conor McGregor before Conor McGregor became the fighter he is today. He's well known for that. He's another one that's been fairly inactive in the UFC. Made his debut again back in 2015. I say again because Tom Breese and Arnold Allen are the same, and kind of all three of them just haven't been overly active. Destroyed Jake Lindsay, destroyed Ivan Jorge, had a really competitive fight with Dustin Poirier. Well, on the feet it was anyway. In fact, Duffy was getting the better on the feet, and it's what made Poirier go to his wrestling in that fight, which ultimately won in the fight. Destroyed Mitch Clark, comfortable decision win over Reza Madadi, and we haven't seen him for about 18 months, or almost 18 months. He lost to James Vick back in November 2017, won the first round at Struck Vick, and then just seemed to slow down a little bit in round 2, and he got dropped right at the end of the second round, and the ref stopped the fight. So I know he's had some injury problems in that intervening period, but his stand-ups, I really like his stand-up. He utilises a quite heavy boxing approach. He tucks his chin, puts his chin behind his shoulders, has his hands low, throws a jab from the hip so you don't see it coming. He's got quick hands, really nice hands. He did get wrestled by Dustin Poirier, showed decent takedown defence against Reza Madadi. I don't know how much to read into that, because although Madadi's wrestling's okay, he's getting up there in age when they fought, but he trains at TriStar, so you've got to expect, coming from TriStar, he's going to take down defence is something that they work on a lot. Marc Diakiese is 12-3, made his debut in the UFC against the Polish guy Szydłowski back at the end of 2016, won that in the second round. Then he beat Frankie Perez, close fight, 1-1 going into round 3, and Diakiese caught a low kick that infuriated Perez's corner, and he managed to maintain top position to basically grind out the third round. Amazing KO win over Teemu Packalin, and since then he's gone on the slide, lost 3 in a row against high level opponents, admittedly. Draco Closer, Dan Hooker, and Nasrat Hakparest. He was training at American Top Team, but he's actually doing his camp back in the UK for this one up in Leeds, which is in northern England. So Diakiese is a striker as well. He's a lot more kind of low percentage type artillery in the stand-up, as opposed to Duffy, who's more of a fundamentalist. So he tries to land generally the low percentage stuff standing Marc. We have seen him mixing his grappling. He did against Frankie Perez. He tried to with Dan Ige, which was his undoing, and it caused him to be submitted. And Jakar Close, I mean, it would have been interesting to see how that fight went if it wasn't for the low kicks from Close. He really damaged Marc's calf early in that fight, and it was just playing up for him for the rest of the fight. Whenever he got kicked on it, he'd go down. He was having to switch stance, which he is comfortable doing. He can switch stances, Marc. He is a very talented guy, but I just think he's in over his head here again. I think maybe the UFC came a little bit too early for him. I mean, he's not had an easy run, as I said. Those last 3 opponents aren't easy opponents whatsoever, and you know, some people get a much easier run in the UFC than Marc's had. But on the flip side, you could say his first 3 fights were, you know, you couldn't really ask for better fights than those 3 potentially. So had it good to start off with, but then they stepped him up and he struggled, and I don't think it's getting any easier here against Joseph Duffy, who is the better stand-up fighter. He's definitely got better hands. Marc is more about landing the low percentage stuff. He likes to have space to be able to get his kicks going and his unorthodox manoeuvres, and that's something Nasrat, for instance, didn't give him. Just completely crowded him. Did not like that pressure at all. Marc is tough. We saw that in the Nasrat fight. Took some big shots. He did get hurt in that fight, but he stayed in there. And will we try and implement his grappling here? Like I said, he did use it against Frankie Perez. Saw him trying to initiate it against Dan Ige. I don't know if he's going to have much joy, to be honest. Duffy should be able to fault the takedowns, and if he does get taken down, he should be able to get back to his feet. He's got a good ground game, Duffy. I think on the feet he's got the advantages. I think he's the better striker. He's the better pugilist, definitely. Marc needs to land something fairly low percentage. So I'm going to pick Duffy here. I think it's going to be a decision. Marc is tough. Wouldn't be overly shocked if Duffy caught him with something and managed to put him away, but Duffy has to be careful as well. He's coming off of the KO loss to Vic, so he might have that in the back of his mind. So he might want to kind of try and keep this, I was going to say long, but he really needs to try and pressure. I mean, it's not really Duffy's style. He's not a full-on pressure fighter like a Nasrat, but he will have spurts where he pressures, so he needs to do that as much as he can, because it nullifies Marc's game. Standing at range is going to let Marc get off his unorthodox techniques, so there's always a risk in that sense that something could land from Marc. But I just think Duffy is the more well-developed, more fundamentally sound fighter here, and I do really like his stand-up. So Duffy needs to get busy as well, because he's 31 now. He's been in the UFC a number of years, and he has been inactive, you know, the last 18 months. So there is that as well. He has had the layoff. You know, is he going to be able to kind of pick up where he left off? I think he can. You know, he's been competing in martial arts and boxing his whole life, so I think he'll slot right back in. So I am going to pick Duffy here. There's a lot of pressure on Marc as well. If he loses this, he's definitely getting cut, because that'll be 4 losses in a row. So there's probably some pressure on his shoulders here. So I'm going to pick Duffy via decision. I see it playing out mainly on the feet, and I just see Duffy's stand-up just being too sharp, too fundamentally sound for Marc. First fight on the main card, an all-Welsh affair. We have Jack Marshman taking on John Phillips. This is going to be a really entertaining fight as long as it lasts. I'd be surprised if it goes to a decision. Both strikers, I can't really see anyone going for takedowns here. I know it's Phillips's weak spot, but I just see Marshman standing with him. Hard fight to call. Phillips, for me, is the harder puncher. He's got real crushing power. I've seen him on the regional scene, going back a long time, I saw him totally destroy James Zikic back in 2010 now. And James Zikic is a tough, hard man, and he just absolutely destroyed him. Really, really impressive how he cut through Zikic. But yeah, he's just never developed enough. He's never rounded out his game well enough to really go anywhere. John, he's 33 years of age now. He's going to get cut if he doesn't win this fight. Hasn't looked great in the UFC so far. Jack Marshman, been in UFC a while now. He's coming off back-to-back losses as well, so there's a bit of pressure on him. Now, I used to think that, well, not that he was chinny, but that, you know, his chin maybe wasn't the best Marshman, because I've seen him knocked out on the domestic scene. Ion Pascu absolutely put him out cold. So did Abu Azatar, who I think that's the chap that made his UFC debut last year. Put him out completely cold. Tom Watson TKO'd him with elbows. So he's been stopped numerous times, but since he's been in the UFC, his chin's looked a lot better. I mean, it took a spinning heel kick from Thiago Santos to drop him, and even then I still think I don't know, maybe it wasn't premature, but he didn't go out. You know, he failed. He went to his back and then some ground and pound from Santos, but the guy didn't go out, and you know, he took some punches off Carl Robertson. So I don't know. It's like it's really bizarre. It's like his chin's improved. I mean, John Phillips cracks. So if he lands flush on you, you can't see many people surviving. So he's got to fight smart here, Marshman. He can't get suckered into a brawl with Phillips. I give Marshman the cardio advantage, but I mean, I think Phillips is a lot more comfortable standing than he is on the ground. I think he's more likely to gas if you manage to take him down, where he might start panicking, worrying about getting submitted. But I think on the feet, he's pretty comfortable. It's his world. So for me, this is a really hard fight to call. The line on this is actually dropped a little bit. I think Marshman's a -175 now. No, it's not a fight I'd want to bet. I definitely don't fancy betting Jack that steep, but then it's just hard to trust Phillips. I did look at his Instagram. He's done some of his camp over in Iceland at Gunnar Nelson's place. I mean, he'll know this is last hurrah for him. If he doesn't win here, he's going to get cut. But there's a bit of pressure on Marshman. I mean, if Marshman lost here, would have lost 4 of his last 5. I mean, he's probably then be in danger of getting cut as well. So this could be a loser leaves town fight. So I'm gonna go Marshman just because his chin's looked, for whatever reason, his chin's held up in the UFC. Phillips just hasn't evolved his game. I'm not really sure how. I mean, like I said, he has been in Iceland, but he done his camp for his first UFC fight at SBG, but then his last fight he didn't go to SBG. He just seemed to train at home. I just don't really know how invested he is in this game. I'm not sure if he's putting his heart and soul into it. I mean, he's got a very good puncher's chance here because I'm pretty sure this is going to be a stand-up fight for however long it lasts. But I'm just going to go with Marshman's chin to survive, and I think he can definitely go at a decent pace on the feet for 3 rounds. I'm not so sure if Phillips can. Marshman can crack as well. I mean, he was doing really well against Thiago Santos before he got caught. Did get outclassed by Robertson, and I mean, the Carlos Jr. fight, terrible stylistic fight for him. And Ryan James, he won, but a tough fight that was. James is just a Terminator, and he knocked out Seed and Blood in his debut. So I'm gonna go with Marshman to win here, but it's definitely not a confident pick. It's a hard fight to call, and I think it's one you should just sit back and enjoy because I'm sure it's going to be an entertaining fight. Danny Roberts, Cláudio Silva, men's welterweight division. Another one that's pretty tough to call. You know, anyone that's seen Cláudio Silva, he's going to want to get this fight to the feet, to the ground. Sorry, 100%. That's his world. He's really, really good on the mat. We've seen that in his UFC fights. He's another one that's pretty inactive. This card just seems full of people that have just been really inactive over the last few years. He had like a 4-year hiatus from between his last fight and his previous fight. He's had a lot of injury problems, but he came back against Taleb, almost 4 years out, caught a kick, got on top and just dominated Taleb and submitted him. And I mean, that's kind of how his game works. If you go back and watch the Leon Edwards fight, manages to just scrape that fight just from getting takedowns and top control. You really don't want this guy on top of you. Really good grappler, really smothering top control, but he's a very flawed fighter. Very old school in the sense that, I mean, all he really knows is his BJJ. Stand-up's very limited, not comfortable on the feet at all. But you know, he's never been beaten in his career. His only loss is a disqualification loss in his debut, and you know, he's got good wins. You look at his UFC record: Bradley Scott, Leon Edwards, Nordine Taleb. You know, they're 3 good wins, but he is injury plagued. I think he was scheduled to fight at some point towards the end of last year and he pulled out because of an injury. So who knows what physical state he's coming into this fight. He probably, you know, he's probably at the point where he needs to fight for the money or before he gets cut from the UFC losing patience with him. And plus he's 36, so he's, you know, his ceiling's running out. Danny Roberts is a striker, trains out of the combat club. He's going to want to keep this fight standing. Been in the UFC a while now. This will be his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will be his 8th UFC fight. Solid stand up. His weakness is his ground game. We saw Nathan Coy take him down. He actually triangled Nathan Coy for the win. Dominick still hit a lot of takedowns on him. Bobby Nash was able to get him down a couple of times. Nash, a good wrestling background, and David Zawada was managed to get him down a couple of times as well. That was a really competitive fight last time out. So I did do tape on this thinking I might look to bet Danny here because he was around plus 150 when I looked, and my gut said it's probably a pick-em fight. What I didn't like with Danny is he does load up a little bit on the feet with his punches, so it does allow someone to come under and hit takedowns, and throws a lot of kicks as well. They're a big part of his game, so I'm concerned that he could have a kick caught and he could get taken down off of it. So it's a hard fight to be confident in either way because Cláudio is so flawed outside of his jiu-jitsu. And he gasses as well. You know, if he doesn't get the finish in round 1, but then, I mean, I know Leon's improved, but he still managed to beat Leon over 3 rounds. So it's a tough fight to call, this one for me. I haven't seen Danny take on a submission guy like Cláudio. So having someone like Bobby Nash on top of you is not really the submission threat, is a bit different to Cláudio, but I'm going to pick Danny Roberts here. As I say, this is a betting podcast. He is the underdog, and it's a fight where I think it should be a pick-em. The odds at the moment are Danny Roberts plus 135 now, so a little bit of money's coming on him. Cláudio Silva minus 155. I definitely can't back Cláudio as a favourite. He's just too flawed. I mean, you could look at Silva's submission line as a hedge, but then, you know, he didn't submit his first 2 UFC opponents, so there's a danger he could win a decision. So it's a, yeah, I wouldn't be confident in hedging either here. So it's, if you're going to back Roberts, you're just going to have to back him and hope, but I definitely wouldn't go big. I'm going to pick Roberts. I think maybe round 1 might be tough, but he'll survive, and Cláudio just going to slow down. There is a big striking discrepancy here. Danny's definitely the better striker, but he's got to try and be a bit lighter on his feet and not load up. He's got to avoid them takedowns. If he does get taken down, he might find that he's stuck on the bottom, but odds for me imply I have to pick Danny. If I was going to bet it, I'd stab Danny, but it definitely wouldn't be a big bet. I'm not confident either way here, but I'm going to pick Danny Roberts to win a decision. Next, the men's bantamweight division, we got Nathaniel Wood taking on José Quiñónez. So Nathaniel Wood looks pretty solid in the UFC so far. I'm very familiar with Nathaniel. I saw him in Cage Warriors for a few years before he made his UFC debut. He's got very solid stand-up. He's very fast. He's got very good power for a bantamweight fighter. If you go and watch his fight on Cage Warriors against, let me just find the chap's name, Luca Levine, just an amazing one-punch KO, just takes the guy out completely. Before that, had a slightly worrying epic battle with Josh Reed. It only lasted a couple of minutes, but it's just a couple of minutes of complete violence. You watch his fight before that, he fights Marco Kovacevic, and again just takes him out with strikes as well. Before that he took Vaughan Lee out, who's a UFC veteran, and since being in the UFC had a pretty tough first fight, to be fair. Johnny Eduardo, I know he's getting up there in age, but he's a veteran, tough guy, been in the sport a long time. Had a tough first round, Wood, but you know, showed composure, came back really well in round 2, was landing some nice shots on the feet, and locked up a really nice submission victory. And he looked really, really good against Andre Ewell. I thought Ewell, with his length and his height, might give him some problems, but Wood's speed was just exceptional in that fight on the feet, and actually showed another wrinkle to his game by mixing in takedowns and controlling the action on the floor, and ultimately getting the submission win. So I'm pretty intrigued to see how far Wood can go. I think he's a very exciting fighter, so I can definitely see the UFC wanting to keep him around. He's only 25, trains at Team Titan with Brad Pickett, so I'm excited to see how far this guy can move through. He is hittable, which is, you know, as he moves up, that could become a bit worrying. And we've not seen his takedown defense or his bottom game tested. Even when you go back to like his Cage Warriors fight, it's just not really been seen, so that is a bit of an unknown with his game, so it'd be interesting to see that. Quiñónez, keeping with the theme of guys that fight very irregular, he's another one who we seem to see like once a year. In fact, yeah, once a year since 2015, once a year, so very inactive. He's got a decent stand-up. He actually has a very good body lock takedown, so that's going to be interesting in this fight. I'm pretty sure we're going to get to see what Nathaniel's takedown defense is like, and also we're probably going to have to see what his bottom game stroke get-ups are like. So that's a wrinkle that I expect we're going to have to see at some point out of Wood, but I'm fairly confident he's going to be well schooled. But back to Quiñónez. Nice body lock takedown. His top control isn't the best though. I mean, he managed to keep Morales down and sub him, but Morales not UFC ready, no ground game. His last fight was Ishihara a year ago, just over a year ago. Competitive fight, 1-1 going into round 3. Quiñónez probably edged round 3 on the feet. I've got maybe a few worries over Quiñónez's chin. He seems to get stunned by Joey Gomez. Diego Rivas, I think, dropped him there. They didn't show a replay of it, so I'm not 100% sure it's a headshot, but he wasn't hurt. He popped straight back up. I'm pretty sure it was a headshot, and he definitely had his legs turned to jelly a couple of times by Ishihara, so I'm not 100% sold on his chin, and Nathaniel Wood does hit hard for a bantamweight, so this is going to be an interesting fight. As I say, Quiñónez does have a really good body lock takedown, so I think we are going to get to see some of Wood's takedown defense here, and also what he's like from the bottom. But Quiñónez isn't great maintaining the control on top, so if Wood is well schooled, he should be able to get back to his feet here. I think on the feet, I think Wood's too quick for him. I think he's too powerful for him, and I think potentially could expose that chin. So I think this is going to be an exciting fight, as most Wood fights are. I don't think Wood would try and mix in his grappling here. I think against Ewell there was the big height and reach disadvantage he was at, whereas he's not going to have that here. I think he'll be content to keep this on the feet. I think he's a better striker. He's definitely quicker. He's definitely more powerful. Just needs to be careful not to crash the distance too much and give Quiñónez that body lock takedown. But I'm definitely going with Wood here to win in London, in his hometown, and kind of keep his momentum going. And I really hope if he beats Quiñónez, they make the fight with Tom Duquesnoy. I think that'd be an excellent fight. Right, light heavyweight fight next. We've got Dominick Hayes taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Quick look at the stats. Hayes 6'4", 2-inch height advantage. He's 77-inch reach, so 2-inch reach advantage. He's also a southpaw. Same age as Volkan. Both really high significant strikes landed per minute. Volkan is up at nearly 6. Hayes is at 6.5. Strikes absorbed. Volkan nearly at 5. Hayes just over 2. They don't go for takedowns, these two. This is going to be a stand-up fight, so I'm looking forward to this. I haven't been getting ahead of myself with Hayes. I've been wanting to see how he does stepping up, and I mean he steps up each time. Debut against Joachim Christiansen just blew him away, 30 seconds. Jeremy Kimball, first round sub, took him down, took his back, subbed him. Jared Cannonier took him out in the first round, lovely uppercut on the back foot, and then last time out, a comfortable decision win over OSP, and he actually knocked him out right on the bell at the third round. Surprised it wasn't called a KO. I'm not really sure how that works when you hit the KO at the bell, but I mean OSP was completely done. So he's looked impressive. He fights out of the southpaw stance. He's got very high volume. The one thing I did note, because that was something I was wary about, was his cardio, because he'd never really been... one fight he'd been outside of round 1 where he'd won a 3-round decision, but there was no tape available on it, so it was his cardio, and his pace did drop against OSP. He set a really high pace in round 1, and 2 and 3 the pace did drop off, but he still won both rounds, and he still basically KO'd OSP at the end of the third round. But yeah, he's got really good stand up, seems defensively sound. The knockout on Cannonier was really nice because it was off the back foot with an uppercut. Volkan Oezdemir made his debut against OSP. A very competitive fight. It's probably fortunate to get that decision. He then picked up the really 2 quick wins over Serkinov and Jimmy Manuwa, and the kind of death touch Volkan was then born, because there was really, especially the Serkinov one, real bizarre KO, just caught him with seemed like the most insignificant punch, but completely shut his lights out, and pretty much done the same to Jimmy Manuwa. Both, beat them both in a combined total of like 80 seconds. Then he fought Daniel Cormier. Cormier ultimately used his wrestling there just to expose him, and he's coming off a loss to Anthony Smith where he got submitted in the third round. Volkan does slow down. I've seen it in a few of his fights. OSP, his fight before his UFC debut I watched, and he gassed really badly in that fight, and he slowed down against Anthony Smith as well. So does seem to be a cardio issue with him. His stand-ups, he's got decent stand-up, he's tough. I don't think Hayes is going to be able to get him out of there. He is a tough boy, seems to have a real sturdy chin. But, Volkan I think will be around the UFC. I mean, he's put him in 3 losses in a row, in fact, which I think he'll get another fight after, because I think Volkan's a decent fighter. And if he does lose this, he would have lost to Hayes, who would then be seen as a potential title contender, and to Daniel Cormier, one of the greatest of all time. So I think he'd definitely get another shot. Trains at the Combat Club with Henry Hooft, but I just think Hayes would just be... I think he's going to be too cute for him on the feet. Volkan is hittable. He kind of can attack a bit recklessly. I mean, he's got a puncher's chance because he's taken out Manuwa and Serkinov, and we haven't seen Hayes' chin really tested yet. So, Volkan round 1 KO wouldn't be shocking. But I just think if Hayes survives the first round, I think the cardio for Volkan will let him down, and I just think Reyes is the better fighter. It's going to be interesting to see how Reyes' cardio holds up. I see this being another 3-round fight for him, so this will be 2 in a row. The volume did drop off against OSP, but the volume in round 1 was ridiculously high, so maybe we're being harsh. And maybe it wasn't that it dropped off so much, but it was just that the round 1 volume was so high. We kind of expected that in round 2 and 3, and at light heavyweight, a big man like that, it's, you know, really it's not, it just doesn't happen very often. Someone can set a relentless pace who's such a big human being. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see Reyes again, if he can get another dominant win, because he's been dominant so far. I think this will be his most competitive fight to date. I think round 1 is going to be competitive, but I do feel that he will not only outlast Volkan, but I think his stand-up's a little bit more refined, and I think that's gonna make the difference. And I say Volkan's got a solid chin, he has, but we have seen him stun. OSP kind of had him stunned. I did watch the Anthony Smith fight, but I'm putting a blank on kind of how that fight went, even though I did go back and rewatch it. But I do remember OSP stunning him, and I think OSP had him hurt at the end of round 3, but Volkan was running on empty at that point. But I do expect Volkan to hang around for the 3 rounds, and that'd be good for Reyes. He needs to go 3 rounds, especially as he gets closer to a title fight. You don't want to be going into a 5-round fight and you're kind of blowing everyone away in round 1 or 2. You need to have that cardio tested. But I am going to pick Reyes to win a decision here, keep the impressive streak going, and keep the run towards a title shot, building momentum, because light heavyweight needs all the contenders it can get. So I'm sure the UFC will be hoping that Dominick Reyes can win this fight. Co-main event is really good fight, and another fight that's pretty tough to call. It's Leon Edwards taking on Gunnar Nelson. So Leon has, his UFC tenure has really been him kind of showing a mixed game, decent stand up and mixing in a lot of takedowns and using ground control on guys, and he's actually showing pretty good takedowns as well as takedown defense. His only losses in the UFC are to Usman, which was over 3 years ago now, and I didn't go back and watch that fight for the purposes of this fight, but I do remember Usman, he made Usman work for them takedowns, and that was over 3 years ago. So he's got good takedown defense, and he's got a loss to Cláudio Henrique da Silva, who's fighting on this card as well, where he just got taken down too much ultimately and lost the decision. But you could see the takedown defense had improved between that fight and the Usman fight, and I can imagine in the last 3 years or so he's only been working on that more so, and I imagine it's even stronger now than it was then. But he's on a run of 6 straight wins. He's beaten Dominic Walters, Albert Tumanov, Vicente Luque, Brian Barberena, Peter Sobotta and Donald Cerrone. Didn't look great in the Cerrone fight, I've got to say. Started off well, but he dropped the last couple of rounds. It was his first 5-round fight, so maybe it was just a case of not being used to fighting in 5-round fights. He did win the first 3 rounds, so I guess if it was a 3-round fight, I'd be sitting here saying it was a shutout. So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Leon. I've not seen him since June, but yeah, he's really solid. He's got decent stand-up, albeit his volume is quite low. But he will mix in the takedowns and keep top control. Happy to work in that manner. He's taking on Gunnar Nelson, who made his comeback from injury against Brazilian Cowboy. Had a tough first round, but got Brazilian Cowboy down and cut him open badly with an elbow and managed to sink the submission. So this is a really tough fight for me to call, because on the feet I see it being pretty competitive. They're both decent standing. Gunnar is a little bit defensively flawed on the feet, but Leon's just pretty low volume on the feet. I mean, but so is Gunnar. So on the feet, it's a hard fight for me to call. I really don't know who's going to win. Leon's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and he does fight out of southpaw stance. Gunnar will switch things up, but on the feet, it's a close fight for me. It's difficult for me to predict who's going to win the stand-up there. I mean, maybe Leon will edge it, but it's going to be low volume on the feet as well, I think. So it's inviting. I think they both could potentially, with their low volume, invite for this fight to be interpreted differently by the judges on the feet, and then you start going down the realm of, you know, controversial decisions and whatnot. So what is going to be interesting to see is if anyone can implement their takedowns. Now, if Gunnar gets on top of Leon is probably in trouble, because Gunnar is an absolute nightmare on the ground. I mean, he's got the best grappling in the division behind Damian Maia. Really excellent grappler, and we saw it in his last fight, top control against Brazilian Cowboy, mounted him, split him open horribly with an elbow, and then just sunk the rear naked choke. But he's got to be able to put Leon on his back. Gunnar's takedowns, they're okay, but he's not a kind of wrestling dynamo. He doesn't have the wrestling of, say, a Damian Maia, who can get people down to the ground and dictate the fights like he wants to. So on the feet, I'd probably give the edge to Leon, but you know, I'm not convinced fully that he wins the stand-up. I can't see Leon implementing his normal strategy here of mixing in takedowns. I don't think he's going to want anything to do with mixing with Gunnar on the floor. So Gunnar could make Leon more hesitant with the takedown threat, and if he does get on top, then Leon's in trouble. Anyone he gets on top of, you're in trouble against Gunnar. And Gunnar does have deceptive power as well. He hurt Alan Jabane badly on the feet. He actually looked decent on the feet against Albert Tumanov. He was having some success on the feet with Tumanov. He dropped Brandon Thatch. You know, he's got some sneaky power. And with Leon, has Leon KO'd or TKO'd or dropped anyone in the UFC? He nearly got knocked out by Barberina. Done really well to recover there. He did work Luque on the feet, but Luque gassed. I mean, actually, he was getting wrecked by Albert Tumanov on the feet, Leon. And Gunnar was competitive with Tumanov on the feet. So I don't like playing MMA maths, but that's the first time I've recalled them being mutual opponents, and I recall both the fights. And I remember the Sabota fight was pretty close on the feet. There was just not a lot coming from Leon. Do you know what? I'm going to pick Gunnar here. I think on the feet it's very competitive. There's no reason why Gunnar can't win that fight on the feet, and Leon could be more tentative. He could be worried about the takedown, and on the mat I'd definitely favour Gunnar. I'd favour Gunnar against pretty much any welterweight on the mat, and he can, you know, I don't see why he can't get Leon down here, so I'm going to go Gunnar. I don't know whether he'll get a submission, but I'm going to go Gunnar here. And the odds as well, he is the underdog. Gunnar sitting at plus 140, Leon the minus 160 favourite. Yeah, Leon hasn't really shown finishing ability on the feet, so although you can get at Gunnar on the feet, he's got sneaky power, held his own with Tumanov, and the takedown threat is real. So I'm going to pick Gunnar here. I'm not sure whether it's a decision, whether he can snatch up a submission. A submission would definitely make a statement, but I'm going to pick Gunnar to win this fight. And then the main event, still in the men's welterweight division, we've got Darren Till taking on Jorge Masvidal. So if we have a quick look over the stats for this one, so both of them have had a fair few UFC fights, so kind of stats give us a fair idea of kind of what their volume is like and takedowns and so forth. So Darren's got a slight height advantage, same reach, both 74 inches. Darren's a southpaw. He's 8 years younger. Darren's significant strikes are just under 2.5 per minute. Jorge Masvidal's just up at over 4. Darren absorbs 3 significant strikes per minute, but that stat is skewed a lot by the Woodley fight and the round 3 of the Dalby fight where he dislocated his shoulder. So you kind of got to take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Masvidal absorbs, well, same as Till, 3 strikes per minute. Darren Till averages half a takedown per 15 minutes. Jorge Masvidal's up at nearly 2, and he's got 58% takedown accuracy. So really good fight, this one. Darren Till is coming off the title fight with Tyron Woodley where he got dropped and ultimately submitted. Prior to that, he won in London, or in Liverpool in fact, he beat Wonderboy in a very closely contested fight. Dropped Wonderboy in the 5th round. I mean, a lot of people scored it for Wonderboy. It was, I mean, much of the fight was much of nothing. There wasn't a lot going on. It was a close, tough fight to call. Before that, he destroyed Donald Cerrone. Looked very impressive in that fight. And before that, he was coming off wins over Jesse Nayari and Bojan Vedojic. Had both of them hurt in that fight, especially Ayari. I don't know how Ayari survived until the bell. He was rocked multiple times. He had Bojan hurt as well. Darren Till's left hand is like a sniper. Just catches people with that, and it's got big power. He's very big for the weight. He's not going to make welterweight for much longer, I don't think. He's going to have to move up to middleweight. He's very big for the weight. He's shown solid takedown defense, really. He stuffed Cerrone. Cerrone did get one, but he got straight back up. Tyron Woodley couldn't get him down when he tried. He's not an easy guy to take down, Darren Till. And we have seen him slow a little bit as well. I'm not going to include the Dalby fight here because his shoulder went. It's, you know, God knows what was going through his mind, but we have kind of seen him slow down. He did go 5 with Wonderboy and he looked fine, but it was quite a slow-paced fight. So, and he does cut a lot of weight. He struggles at the weight. So, in a high-paced fight, you would definitely worry about his cardio. But he is big. He hits very hard. That left hand, he times it so well. A lot of Darren's... the problem I have with Darren is his volume. He just isn't a high-volume fighter. And he does rely an awful lot on that left hand. You don't see a great deal of attacks come from elsewhere. He has got a decent jab when he uses it. I wish he'd use that a bit more to set up the left hand. And he doesn't really fire off too many kicks. I mean, considering he's a southpaw, you'd expect to see the body kick a lot more, but you don't really see it a great deal. So, I mean, he is very good with timing that left hand, but I do feel like he kind of overly relies on it. I would just like to see him mix his game up a bit more, and I definitely would like to see a bit more volume from him. Jorge Masvidal, UFC veteran, has been around years. He's had like almost 50 professional fights now. He's famous for being on the Kimbo Slice backyard brawls before he got into the UFC, and not sure if he was doing that when he was competing. He may have been, because he's been a professional now for, 16 years he's been fighting, so since he was 18. That's incredible. So he's coming off a layoff here, Jorge. His last fight was November 2017, so almost 18 months, against Wonderboy, and he got totally, he got outclassed in that fight. I rewatched it, and Wonderboy looked fantastic. Just had no answer for Wonderboy's movement, for his speed. Just made him look really bad, to be fair. I think with Darren Till, he had a very competitive fight with Wonderboy, but I definitely think Wonderboy respected Till's power a lot more than Masvidal. I think people do worry about that left hand. So, but yeah, it was a tough fight for Masvidal there. He got wrecked. Fight before that, he lost a split decision to Damian Maia. I don't really agree with it being a split. I thought Damian won, definitely got 2 rounds in that fight. And before that, he was coming off the really spectacular win over Donald Cerrone. Jake Ellenberger, he looked really good in that fight as well. And before that, he beat Ross Pearson. And prior to that, he was coming off 2 split decision losses in a row to Benson Henderson and Lorenz Larkin. I actually went as far back as the Lorenz Larkin fight. I don't think that was a split decision loss. I thought Larkin won that fight. Thought he outstruck Masvidal. Ross Pearson he clearly beat, but Masvidal has been guilty in his career of coasting and being too low volume. I didn't rewatch the Ross Pearson fight, but I'm sure I scored round 3 for Pearson in that fight, which, I mean, Masvidal was clearly 2 rounds up, but clearly took round 3 off. Jake Ellenberger he came out aggressive against. I remember betting him in that fight, thinking that he would be aggressive, and he was, but I mean, Jake Ellenberger, even back then at the end of 2016, was shot, so you can't take a great deal away from that. And then I bet him over Cerrone as well, and that was again a more aggressive performance. He seemed to definitely become more aggressive and change his style up after having the split decision losses that he suffered. He had that loss to Al Iaquinta where he had him in all sorts of bother in the first round, and then just started coasting and ended up losing a split decision. Lost a split decision to Benson Henderson not long after that fight. So yeah, it definitely looks like he's tried to be more aggressive. But he's been out a while now. He's 34 years of age, 18-month layoff. He's been fighting professionally since 2003. 16 years. It's a long time. There's got to be some sort of drop off at some point. You've got to think, was that against Wonderboy, or is Wonderboy just that good? I think maybe Wonderboy is just that good, and just stylistically it was just a tough fight for Jorge. But you know, Darren's a lot younger, he's a lot fresher. Is Masvidal going to respect the left hand too much here to be aggressive? He's got a solid chin, Masvidal. Solid chin. He did get dropped by Wonderboy. He wasn't hurt, but he did get dropped. But he's I mean, he's been KO'd once in his career, but it was years back. Rodrigo Dam, of all people, believe it or not. And I didn't go back and watch it, but I remember it was a bad stoppage, premature. Masvidal has fought at lightweight. He's been at welterweight a while now, but he's definitely going to be the smaller guy here. So is the size and power of Darren Till going to be too much? Is it going to make Masvidal respect him too much? I'm going to go Darren Till. I'm not in love with the line, minus 255, just because Till's volume just worries me. If he can't start timing that left hand, and a lot of the time because he hurts people with that left hand, it's, you know, he hurts someone. I mean, say he kind of gets out volumed in a round, but he manages just to hurt someone with that left hand at some point in the round, it probably gives him the round. If he can't hurt Jorge, and Jorge's out voluming him, then, you know, he could be in trouble here, but it's going to be a big size disadvantage. Till does push forward. We've not really seen Jorge be pushed back. How's he going to deal with being pushed back by a bigger, more powerful guy? That's something that I am interested to see. I don't think the layoff's really going to affect him. He's just been fighting too long for that to affect him, and he seems like someone that, you know, the thought of fighting doesn't faze him at all. He's not scared to fight. This guy's a natural fighter, so I don't really think the layoff's going to have any impact here. But he has had a lot of fights. He is 34. He's fighting a bigger guy. You've got the partisan crowd as well. They're going to cheer every time Till throw something, lad something. This all sways judges' minds. I just don't know. I mean, to gas Till, he's going to have to push a pace. He's going to have to try and push Till back. I don't know if he's going to be able to. I don't know if he's got the power to get Till's respect either, for Till to kind of back off. It's 5 rounds, so Till may worry about his cardio. So I expect the volume to be normal for him, which is pretty low, but I think he's going to do enough. I think he's going to have enough forward pressure. He's going to have enough moments that are eye-catching with that left hand, And also, just to touch on with the Wonderboy fight, Wonderboy is a southpaw. Now, as I said, it may just be that Wonderboy is that good, but did he struggle with Wonderboy as well because of the southpaw stance? Is that something he's uncomfortable facing? Darren Till's a southpaw as well, so you know that could be a potential issue for him. I haven't gone back and looked at when Masvidal had faced a southpaw last, but I mean Lorenz Larkin isn't a southpaw, and then Al Quinta isn't either, so the Wonderboy is definitely the best southpaw he's ever faced, and Darren Till is he beat Wonderboy according to the judges, so you know there wasn't, I mean either way there wasn't much in that fight, so these are definitely the two best southpaws he's ever faced in his career, and he really struggled with Wonderboy, so I'm going to go with Till here. I think he's going to win a decision. Masvidal is durable, but I think he's going to do enough to get this decision. I think the size is going to be too much. I think Masvidal's going to be backing up too much. Till's going to land that left hand. He might stun Masvidal a few times as well, but I would just like to see a bit more volume from Till, and I would like to see him with a bit more variety as well. I'd like to see him throwing that body kick. I'd like to see him using that jab more to set up the left hand. I'd just like to see a bit more of an offensive arsenal from him. But yeah, I'm going to go with the younger guy at home to win a decision here. So that wraps up all the picks for this week, guys. Check out ProMMABetting.com for the betting packages. We're going to have a few bets available for this weekend. We went, I think it was 8-4 on our UFC whole card picks for last week's YouTube video, so the high percentage winning ratio across our whole card has been maintained for another week. Let's see how we do this week, because there are breaking these fights down, a lot of them are very competitive and tough to call, so let's see how we do. Let's see if we can keep the good run going of picking around, getting around 70% of the fights correct each week. Yeah, give us a follow on Twitter at ProMMABetting, and please give us subscribe on the YouTube channel, and we'll be back next week to break down the UFC for next week. Look forward to speaking to you guys online. Take care.